the audio capture, not registered.
Hello, hello, hello. What's going on? Welcome, one and all, to BioTalk Live, the show where us Bionicle fans come together and talk about all the things we love about the franchise that, we saw go away 10 years ago and yet is still in our hearts to this day. Now, if you're new to this stream right now or you're just tuning in, to join in on the conversation, we have a Discord link. It's in the description. I'm pretty sure it's updated. You can join it if you want to chat. If you want to come onto this show live, anyone can do it. Just come on in there. We have a whole rule sheet laid out for you guys on the Discord. And yeah, we try to keep this show to every Thursday. Now, there are days here and there where I'm out of town or I'm doing something, but you will always expect us on a Thursday. That's usually the time that works best for most people. We have 13 concurrent viewers. How's it going, everybody? Today, we will be talking about the Bionicle films, the trilogy. Now, of course, I think it will take a whole nother video to go over Legend Reborn, but for the most part, we're going to start from Mask of Light and talk all the way up to Web of Shadows for about 45 minutes or an hour here, just discussing the films, how they got started, what we love, what we don't like, because as you guys know, there are pros and cons to everything. But regardless, I will say I'm very thankful that we got movies at all, right? Like, that's the thing, is like, even kids that like didn't grow up with a Bionicle, like maybe their brother did or their sister did, and they remember watching this film at least at one point in their lives. So it's actually kind of fascinating that one of the things that really pulls even fans that didn't really grow up with Bionicle together are just the fact that they had these movies when they grew up, especially Mask of Light. So once again, if you're new to this, go ahead and click the link in the description to join the Discord, and we usually like to have a panel of hosts here. Today I'm joined by Captain Geo.
Hello.
How's it going? And I'm also joined by Darth Raven, who's kind of new. He's been on the last couple of streams.
That's good.
Yeah, so today we will be talking about all things Bionicle films. To just get started, before we get into like the live chat and all of that, to give you guys an idea, basically when these films were originally being discussed, actually with Lego, when Bionicle was first getting discussed, the idea was to produce pretty much a movie a year. And I think it was after 2001 when Bionicle just blew the gates off of the toys that were selling at the time and just came in and killed it and was like the named Toy of the Year in 2001 and I believe 2002 as well. When that happened, immediately they were like, let's go into production, or at least go into the potential possibility of doing Bionicle films. Now, this is something I read, and I'm pretty sure it's true. Don't know entirely so, but they were originally going to make a film starting in 2002 with the Borak invasions. A quick recap of 2001, and then boom, 2002. They even had like concept art and all this stuff, but it took a while for them to get the funds to get the ground running on that project, so they went with, of course, Mask of Light. And as you guys know, the production company behind these three films is Creative Capers. They have an Instagram, they have a Facebook. I would definitely go check it out. They've continued to work with a lot of companies like Disney and Netflix on a handful of things, doing animation work. And yeah, a fun fact actually, like a fellow like student colleague of mine in college was a freshman when I was a senior, and his uncle is one of the guys that directed this film. So when they went to Creative Capers, they met with them, and the Lego team met with them and decided, you guys are the ones that are fit for this. Bring on your director, bring on your animation team, here's the budget, and here's some voice actors we'd like to see, and all that kind of came together for this first film. Now, let's just get into it. Mask of Light. Now, for me, I was really excited for the film, obviously, but I loved 2001 and 2002, and for me, I was hoping that they had, done a film for those, but at the same time, it's a toy. They gotta keep it consistent with the story that's being told at the moment. And so they did Mask of Light. I remember getting, I think it was one of the Bionicle issues with the Borak Call And it advertised the Roxy on the back, and then there was another page that said Bionicle the movie coming fall 2003. And I just remember losing my mind. At that time, the idea of a Bionicle film, and I didn't know it was straight to DVD. I didn't know what straight to DVD, straight to VHS home video really was. So I was assuming it was going to be in the theaters. You know, young little me, young little Zach Cap is thinking like, oh my God, am I going to be able to go to the movie theaters and see a Bionicle movie? As we know, it was straight home video release. I didn't really quite understand that. In fact, I actually remember looking at like local theaters to see if it was playing, and like my parents had to explain, no, there's a thing called straight to DVD, straight to VHS that they're doing. So I ran straight away to the nearest, I think it was a Fred Meyer. That's what we have up in Seattle in the Northwest, which is like kind of like not a Walmart, but more of just your average like grocery / appliance store. And they always had a DVD video section, and I went straight to there, saw the VHS, saw the reviews on the back, and was like, this looks epic, this is amazing, I'm gonna get this. And I remember I didn't even watch it until my birthday. I bought it. It had come out just a couple days before my birthday, October 17th. I think it was like the 14th or 15th that it had been released at stores. And I remember I had all my friends gathered together, even those that were just kind of casual Bionicle fans or Lego fans, and we tossed it on. And let me just tell you, from the opening intro of Makuta's and Metru Nui's fight, kind of the way Trilogy sums it all up, just thinking, oh my God, I'm in for a hell of a time. The world building, the music by Nathan First, just everything when that Bionicle logo comes in, lost my freaking mind, guys. And, you know, at the time I was a kid, and I remember after I watched that film, like, kids were, like, scared of the Roxy. I mean, we're 7 years old, 8 years old. They're, like, thinking, like, this is a dark film for us. You know, it's not your, like, goody two-shoes little Pixar film when it comes to just, like, the themes of, like, dread and evil taking over. And it was very dark, I mean, for a kid's film, you know. It had lighthearted moments, but I just remember that establishing the world and with the music and everything, I was so in love with it that I tossed that VHS on so much. I must have worn it down. The fact that, like, it's still around and my mom has the copy somewhere in her basement is wild to me, because everywhere I'd go, I would put it on. If I had to go to daycare, I'd put it on. If I was at my cousin's house, I would just rewatch it again and again and again and again. I watched this film so many times over and over. And I know since then, you know, kids that came after the films and a lot of Bionicle fans that were younger than me maybe have a tendency to like one film over the others. You know, we'll get into it. Obviously, I would say probably the best film when you look at it from a filmmaking standpoint is maybe the second one, Legends of Metru Nui. But at the time, Mask of Light was so epic, and it's definitely the most nostalgic one for me. Every time I watch it, just from the opening scene to Jaller and Takua's relationship, you know, you're not dealing with a whole team of Toas. You're really just dealing with Jaller and Takua. So it feels very like how I would describe it. And, you know, Lord of the Rings had come out at that time. I think Return of the King was just about to come out, but the two previous films had come out. It is very similar to that as far as, like, there's this MacGuffin that they have to take, and they, you know, they find it in a volcano, and they have to go on a journey together, and there's the wise leaders, and they have, like, this sort of table where they all sit and discuss what's going on. I mean, it did definitely feel like they were pulling a lot of inspiration from that. But yeah, overall, let's just see who's talking in the chat, and then I'll toss it over to Captain Geo and Darth Revan. We have BioScrawl here. How's it going? Heck yeah, new BioTalk today. Daler99 should be fun. DJ Alistar, this is cool and awesome. Kyler Nuva, how's it going? We have Enrique Holtman. Yeah, Kyler Nuva is saying, are we going to watch all films back to back? No. Although I'm hoping to down the line definitely do that. We have CMOS. Said that this would be a very long stream if we did that, for sure. I think it'd be just a little over 3 hours. I've done it, though. It's actually not that long to watch each one back to back. BioScrawl, certainly I won't care how late I stay up. Would there be a discussion on The Legend Reborn? Down the line, I'm definitely interested to.
Tonight, no!
Tonight, no. Maybe tomorrow night, I don't know. Philosophy 101, good to see you here. CMOS says, drinking game. Take a shot of vodka every time someone says Metru Nui in all 4 movies. That would be a definitely a scary one. You'd make it through.
You would be dead.
You would make it through, actually. The second one, pretty unscathed. And the third one, I don't even think they mentioned Metru Nui more than once or twice. It's for the second film, for Legends of Metru Nui, it'd be like take a shot every time they say Metru Nui. That's how I would say you'd have to do it. Yeah, Philosophy 101, you can at least talk about the fifth one. I mean, there isn't really a fifth one unless you're talking about the Netflix show.
Eesh.
We don't talk about that here.
We don't talk about that here. Constorm One Entertainment. It would be cool if Journey's End did get adapted. I agree. CMOS says, click transforming into the shield reminded me of Weapons and Soul Eater. Again, I'd love to talk about that. I'd love to talk about Legend Reborn because there are some good parts about it. There are some good things in there. But when we get to that, we'll get to that. Leo says, the Nostalgia Man. Cliffsville Melbourne is here. What's going on? Says, that is well professional. Cliffsville Melbourne. When toys are adapted into animation, they sometimes get a different appearance. That's actually another thing, is I remember seeing the film in the trailer, watching the trailer over and over again. When I learned what a trailer was from BionicleMaskOfLight.com. I didn't know what the word trailer meant. When I heard trailer, I thought of like a camping trailer, like a camping truck, like a trailer you would take out if you're camping with your family or something. And so like seeing on the website trailer and clicking that, I was like, oh wow, and they had little clips. I think they had like the first 4 minutes of the movie with Jar Takua down and Takoro in the volcano, all that stuff. But yeah, that's true. Bios Girl says it's still surprising that they were able to get this trilogy. Yeah, that's true. Crystal Melbourne stories and compared to the actual toys. Color Nova says Darth Revan appears at his announced that they're making Knights of the Old Republic. We did talk about that actually before we went live today. Very excited. Just gotta have to cop a PS5. CMOS says my friend's brother used to watch The Legend Reborn every day. Well, there you go. See, for some people that movie means a lot to them. So 100%. Kawanuva says, I mean, Pixar had their dark moments back then, too. Remember the opening to Finding Nemo? Oh, for sure. I actually, when I said dark, I meant, like, literally color-wise dark. Like, a lot of the film is very deep and dark in the way that they have these rich blacks and reds, with the fact that, like, the first 20 minutes takes place in Takoro. So that's kind of what I meant. SJ says, The Return of the King, Kyler. I never unsubscribed from you. I never did. Kyler's been here from the beginning since I just started YouTube again. Yoshi Dude says, I need to send the Mask of Light to Red Letter Media. Oh my god, to hear them review it would be incredible. It's funny, there are a couple YouTube accounts that have talked about the Mask of Light, and while they definitely have their negatives that I can understand as someone that just drops on in as like in their 20s or 30s to watch this movie, they did have these pros that I say I would always give them, which is the music's good, the storytelling is actually a little bit concise and important, and the characters are somewhat likable. Now, world building, understanding what's really going on. Obviously, you're not spoon-fed everything that you would unless you were a hardcore Bionicle fan at the time. But and some of the animation is pretty lackluster. But it's funny at the time when I watch these reviews from people that are totally from the outside, just kind of talking about the Mask of Light. They do have some pros and they always say I am surprised about how much I did like some parts of this film. So it's definitely a thing. Kaiju Former Bionicle Mask of Light is definitely a good film in my opinion. RIX Rick says Takua. SJ says, so it's surreal seeing your face after just seeing your hands for years. You reviews from my childhood, man. Well, your videos and Color Nuvas. That's awesome, SJ. Raidmaster Productions says, or the Fan Ignitions movies. Yes, those are actually still pretty well done when you just think about the fact that they really didn't have to condense the story at all and followed it to a T. Yoshi did Finding Nemo is what made me want to get a fish tank. Yeah. Of course, definitely. Yoshi dude, I love how Lego Media looks nothing like Lego. At least Legend of Reborn started to look like it, and the Lego movies definitely look like it. But yeah, when Mask of Light came out, I remember being like, these characters don't actually look like their set counterparts. And that is kind of a weird thing that they decided to go by, because it wouldn't be that hard for them to find the 3D schematics of like what it looks like on the computer when they design Bionicles and just put that into an animation. But I think they kind of were very hands-off, as we'll get into further into this stream, that Creative Capers, the company behind these films, really was allowed to do whatever they wanted, especially when it came to the third film. They weren't talking to Greg Farshey all the time. They weren't talking to like really a story group so much as they were given an outline and told this is kind of what happens and kind of go for it, which is for good or ill. It kind of depends on how you look at it. Yoshi dude, I rewatched the review. Oh yeah, it's awful. Yeah. SJ. Okay, you guys are talking. Clips from Melbourne after so many years and after the films and mocks and 3D prints that were made by fans to replicate those close to compare the original G1 toys. Yeah, there are actually some people on YouTube that have made replicas via 3D printing of the characters in Mask of Light and Legend of Metru Nui. It's pretty interesting. But, okay, cool. I've gone through the list. Go on, keep talking, guys. If you have things you want to add to the conversation, I'll get to it later. But for the most part, I've given you kind of my thoughts on Mask of Light. Let's go to Captain Geo and what you have to say about the film. Because were you
For sure.
were you a Bionicle fan when it first came out, or were you kind of later on and then found the film either by renting it or online or whatever?
So I first became a Bionicle fan when the Toa Nuva came out. So I was still able to get like all six Toa Nuva, and then the six Toa Mata were still on the shelves too. But I didn't get a chance to get all six of them until within the last year or so. But regardless,
Yeah.
I was already a Bionicle fan when the movie came out. So I really didn't think anything of it because I was like, how old was I? Like 8, something
Yeah, it
like
must have been
that.
like 8 or 7 even probably. Because
It was
I was
it was
turning
'03.
9. '03, I was turning 9. So you were
Okay,
probably turning like 7 actually at that time.
7 or 8, something like that. But regardless about it's like I didn't exactly know what a good or bad movie was. So like I knew I wanted to see Bionicle because I thought Bionicle was good, and it still is to this day. It's just that looking back on it as an adult, I think Mask of Light is honestly the weakest of the three. Despite that, it still is worth watching if you haven't seen it before or if you haven't seen it in a long time.
Right. No, totally. It's interesting. Like I started a little bit of this series. I haven't done Web of Shadows yet, but I showed my roommate, just someone who's completely disassociated with Bionicle, doesn't know anything about it, Mask of Light, and he did like Legends of Metru Nui better, and we'll get to that. But his notes on Mask of Light were like a lot of the campiness, the kind of like misunderstanding for him of just the world at large. Like, where are the village? What is this actual island that they're on? Like, what kind of powers do they actually have? The animation, yeah, being a little bit lackluster here and there, and just some of the storytelling flaws, I guess, is what you could say. Um,
Yeah,
but at the same time, yeah, it's like in a vacuum, a lot of people probably will not think Mask of Light, out of even compared to Web of Shadows, is the best. But for me, it all comes down to probably nostalgia. It's like you said, Gio. It's like when I was that young, I didn't know what a bad movie was. Like I watched so many films as a kid that are like are terrible, that have like 18% on Rotten Tomatoes, 8%. But I was young. And I couldn't really tell the difference from what was good or bad. I think just that excitement of getting Mask of Light when I was, yeah, I guess 8 years old, going on 9, right around on my birthday, is the thing that kind of like overshadows a lot of the negative aspects of the film for sure. But regardless, I will say I think the score in that film is awesome. SJ says the soundtrack for all of them kicked ass, though. 100% I agree.
Nathan
Bowscroft,
First worked
yeah,
his freaking ass off just to make the score
Nathan
basically
First.
like Lord of the Rings.
And it's unfortunate because I've been following Nathan First, and he's had other projects, a bunch. He's like still a very much a working composer, but I don't think was ever given the opportunity of world building that he was with Bionicle and its story. So Nathan First, like hats off to you. Re-listening to that soundtrack, it's literally like a feature, like major motion picture soundtrack. It sounds so good. The themes, the leitmotifs that call back to certain moments, characters' themes, the sound of the mask whenever the Mask of Light is being used. I mean, it's ethereal almost. It's really, really good.
I'm pretty sure that when the score was recorded, I'm pretty sure that it was actually full orchestra.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I remember I've listened to some interviews. Guinness Walker, was able to let me know that they were doing like a Zoom meeting of a certain amount of people, and he like talked. And I don't know. I think he was given access to an orchestra for some moments, but for the most part, he was doing this all himself, just on computers.
Got it.
It's not like John Williams with the Star Wars films where he's given this entire symphony orchestra, this whole room for every single moment in the movie. There are some moments of real instruments that he uses, but I also do understand, and I think as the films progressed, he was more doing a lot of it on his own, which is kind of interesting. It's like almost a pioneer of that, because I don't know if you guys know, like Steve Jablinski is a musician that did all the Transformers movies, and like while a lot of those movies are not great, the score in it is still really good, especially that first movie. And he started out doing scores for video games, and he never had an orchestra. That was literally all him on his computers. A personal guy we all know, Tom Rule, who does the remix of Hero that I use in my intro, and he's been able to recreate a lot of the Bionicle soundtrack and do his own little like versions, and that's literally, he has no access to other than his little keyboard and a couple other things in his computer, and he's able to create such incredible music. So I really just go to show you that these films, Bionicle films, with Nathan First attached, were really kind of pioneering making like music without, you know, all these insane resources that most major motion pictures have. Sorry, Gio, what were you gonna say?
And like with Toa Tom, that one is more of a more recent one where he can just transpose everything back into like a MIDI file, and it is a MIDI file anyway, but it's more like its technology has gotten better and it's gotten easier and cheaper to make music through just your home computer.
Right,
like
totally.
Before like it was less than like 20 years ago that you needed to have like a full-on studio in order to make music, and now you can just do everything from your home computer.
Oh yeah, totally. Let's toss it over to you, Darth Revan. What are your thoughts on the film? Where were you when it first came out? Did you not become a fan till later? And how, I guess, did you go about it when it first came out, or the first time you watched it? And your thoughts?
Well, I was still like a kid, like 3 years old at the time. I think I was like starting like I well, I know like for 4 year olds, I think mainly it's like pre-K, but then there's like something called nursing school, if I'm not mistaken, for those who start at the age of 3. So yeah, I was probably a kid around that time. I did not know what Bionicle was. I just had some, just some stuffed animals, or watched some like one of those kids shows, like Sesame Street and all that. So I did not know anything about pretty much anything. Like, I didn't know about video games until I was like 4 and all that, and I was not sure. So it wasn't until like I was a fan of Bionicle from 2007, with my first set being the Baraki Kakadox.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
So with the Mask of Light, like I was I think I was 9 years old at the time. I remember that was my 9th birthday gift, along with some like Latorian.
Awesome.
I think it was Borog, Zesk, Tuma, all that.
Awesome.
So then I decided to watch Mask of Light a week later. I just realized, like, oh, wait a minute. I remember I had a DVD for my 9th birthday. It was Mask of Light. Let me see it. And this was actually like the last film in the trilogy that I've seen, because
really?
Without realizing it, I've watched it in timeline order. So I watched 2 first, 3 next, and then Mask of Light. Because I remember it was like, I think it was like on like, I've seen Legends of Metru Nui. I think it was like around February of 2009. Like, it was on like Cartoon Network or something. Yeah, back in February of 2009. I was still in school, so I had to ask one of my parents to DVR it. And then next Friday, I had like the Valentine's Day, like, like the winter break for like usually certain states, like whether they get like, days off from Valentine's Day.
Totally.
I remember like the Friday after, I think it was the Friday the 13th was Legend of Metru Nui, and then like the Friday the 20th, it had Web of Shadows. And I was like, oh, so I'll watch this then. So with The Mask of Life, I don't remember all that much. I remember like, I thought like I wasn't too crazy with the faces of the Rakshi, because they were nothing like the sets.
Of course.
Especially with the Rahaga, when I saw Web of Shadows at first. And I was kind of like Makuta's design, but at the same time I was like, him without wings, I'm just kind of like, I don't know. But overall I did like how the film was animated, kind of to a certain extent. Like, I was not too crazy with certain voices, like Liwa's voice, because I didn't really think the voice of Liwa didn't catch his personality.
Ashbear got no wrong, Koron. Just doing her duty.
Yeah, that doesn't.
This was your home.
Shout Liwa.
I kind of liked it, but I hear you. Liwa's a hard character.
It was a little offensive.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Liwa's voice was a little bit offensive.
Yeah. but
Cool.
I wasn't too much crazy with I think like how like you did technically see Borat, but they were frozen with
Right.
Tupac's
I
appearance.
remember I
But
was always like, I wanted to see more of the Borok. I wanted to see
yeah,
more
yeah,
of the
and
first 2
you know
years.
only half of the Taraga got voice lines. I think it was obviously Vakama,
Yeah.
gathered friends. This Legend of
Wakama,
Bionic.
Nokama,
Yeah,
and
and
Oniwa.
Anua,
Yeah.
Anu, Anua,
Anawa, yeah, Anawa.
Anua. I don't know. Like it's like with saying Anua, who's the toe of earth, and then Anua, toe of stone,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, no,
Taraga.
I don't
So
believe
yeah,
we heard any of the other Turago talk. We
and
definitely didn't hear Wenua
Matau. We
or
didn't hear
Matao.
Wenua, and we didn't
Yeah,
hear Nuju with
yeah,
his
Well, Nuju
bird noises and his
chooses
clicking.
to speak.
I
Nuju
yeah.
know.
chooses to speak as a bird
Clicks.
talk
Yeah,
anyway. So
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
I
yeah.
was unsure.
So it sounds to me
Um,
like for you, your
yeah.
first introduction was Legends of Reborn and then Web of Shadows. So for you, even though you probably enjoyed
Legends of
watching,
Metru Nui.
yeah, even though you
Yeah.
enjoyed watching Mask of Light, it was obviously never going to be your ultimate favorite. Oh, but that's interesting that you were able to still watch them. That's interesting. You got one for your birthday.
Yeah.
And SJ, yes, Cartoon Network did air all 3 films. In fact, right when they came out, I remember I'd already had Bionicle Mask of Light on VHS because I ran to the store as soon as it came out. But I'd say a couple weeks after it came out, I don't know where we could possibly find these commercials. But Cartoon Network, as I'm watching, whatever I was watching back then on Cartoon Network, had when Toonami would come on, had these commercials where Bionicle, the sweepstakes. We're going to be playing Bionicle, the Mask of Light on air. I think back to back. They aired it twice. And within those 2 airings, because it's only an hour long, so within those 2 hours of broadcast where they showed the film twice, there were commercials for Bionicle, and there'd be a little code that would pop up either randomly during the movie or whatever. And so if you found it, you'd go online, enter it, and you'd be eligible to win one of the sets. I think there was like you could win certain sets, and there was like you could win the whole collection of all the Titans and Rockshi and Toa Nuva of 2003. And there was an advertisement that literally showed like it was shot really cool. There was like mist going over a table, and it was like Takua and Puku, Jawler, Makuta, and the Gecko Bird, and of course like Takanuva and the Usanui, and like I remember all these sets with the Rockshi around them in like this little commercial that was like, stay tuned for Mask of Light coming up back to back. Watch it and look for the code that'll randomly pop up. I mean, shows did this all the time, even on like Nickelodeon. But I remember that was specifically something Cartoon Network did for Bionicle. And so that's cool. As we know, like DVRing things back then was the way to do it. And I remember they showed all 3 films consecutively every year when they would come out. And I believe they would rerun them even a couple years after the movies had come out. It sounds like they did for you, Darth Raven. That's how you were able to find them.
Like 8, 9, 8 years old at the time, actually, because my birthday was in July. And that was like in February.
So I mean, it must have been like 2008 or 9, which it's been 2 or 3 years since the movies were made. So it's interesting that they were coming out with them. So that's Mask of Light. Before we move on to Legends of Metru Nui, let's go ahead and just read what some of the chat is saying. SJ says, as bad as the movie was, I like the animation in Legend Reborn best. It looks so intricate, but it made Scopio look a bit bigger than it really was. Totally. That's one positive I will say is the animation looks very set accurate, but that's for good or ill. There's a good reason it's there, but there's also some bad reasons that I definitely would love to talk more about in a future video. SJ Me Too, you got the touch. We're talking about the 1986 Transformers film. Raidmaster Productions says he was 10 years old at the time of Mask of Light. Interesting. Kalanuva says the only real problem with Legend Reborn is that it's pretty blunder as they failed to replicate the Metronui rising sequence. True, but they had a whole different animation team working on that versus the one that was used in like Bionicle commercials at the time. SJ says, weird thing is, by the time I was old enough to really love Bionicle, it was 2010, so I had to do my best with eBay. I mean, dude, in 2010, though, you weren't that bad off with probably finding a way to collect every Bionicle and all the films at that time. Now, here we are 11 years later, and it's going to cost you a pretty penny for anything, so that's interesting. Bioscroll says I was only 3 when Mask of Light came out. Okay, similar to Darth Raven. I think I first watched it in 2005, 2006. Cool, so you watched it when the third movie was probably heading out. CMOS says the first Bionicle commercial I saw was the Hordika. Wow. First Bionicle commercial I saw was the Borak. And I remember seeing that they had the Krana under their mask and being like, wow, what a cool idea. Like in all the action.
Never mind.
SJ says, I remember being grossed out with Makuta pulling Krata out of his body. Oh, totally. The Krata in general were pretty gnarly. Like the Rockshi in general were gnarly. They were all so slimy and gross. But it was a cool effect for sure. And definitely for kids, it really hits you and sticks with you. And that's why you keep watching. Kyler Nuva says, yeah, they added a bonus ending to Mask of Light that sets up Legend of Metru Nui. Yeah, so a year later, 2004, when Legends of Metru Nui was coming out, they were going to air it on Cartoon Network. Before they aired it, they showed Mask of Light, and then they would put a tag at the end that was like a trailer for Legends of Metru Nui, and you have Taraga Kama going, before we were Taraga, we were Toa, and here are the stories, blah blah blah. And that was the thing that they did. Seamoth says, interestingly, the Borak look very similar to their sets. Yes, I remember that. Like as they're entering Kokoro, and there's that snowstorm, as it dissipates and Kopaka, pulls the storm away, you see Borak. And they look just like the figures. They were very accurate to them. And I was like, what? So they were able to do the 3 seconds that we see Borak in this film accurate, but then otherwise they couldn't. Like, I just remember being like so let down that we couldn't see them because I loved the Borak, just that whole storyline. Kaiju Forma says, Liwa, my voice, Matanui, what have you done to me? LJ reference. Nice. Light has revealed the will of Matanui. Kyler Nuva says.
Nuva lines.
Takuta Nuva lines, yes. SJ said they might come back if they went to where Makuta lived because nobody would figure that out. Matu got a brief line. Interesting. That maybe he did. Or a couple of them did get a brief line. If it was Matau just going, oh, Matanui. Maybe in a deleted scene, yeah. I saw that commercial. It's on YouTube. The Bionicle movies are basically anime, but in 3D. Yeah, you don't really see them talk. Like it was probably there are off-camera sounds, which I guess you could attribute to.
Not like Bakama.
Yeah.
No comma.
BioScroll 97 says the Takuta Nuva scene with him rising from the pool of Protodermis terrified me. Dude, me too. And the ho playing and they have the chants and I just remember also just his voice being so strange and they do this a lot in Mask of Light, and they use it in Legends of Metru Nui and a bit in Web of Shadows, but they'll slow the frame rate down, and it's really weird. They think it's dramatic, but it just looks like it's kind of glitchy. But actually, it's an effect you could recognize was used in the Lord of the Rings films, actually, if you go back and watch it. They weren't shooting at high speed, so when they would put it in slow-mo, it looks a little awkward and not fluid. That's actually an effect they used in a handful of films in the early 2000s, including Lord of the Rings and including the Bionicle films. But when you do it with animation, an animation that isn't quite, as polished as major motion picture animation, it does look a little weird. And that is an effect that they use a handful of times, the most in Mask of Light. Our brother must be awakened, they're saying. The first Bionicle ad you saw was 2015 one. Philosophy 101. No way, that's crazy. You must be so young. SJ, the fate of the world was decided by basically football with sticks in the Mask of Light, as it should be, totally. I mean, that was the way that they bookended it, right? They start with the Coley match and they end with something similar. It's definitely a trope they use in a lot of films. Ivax the Austin says, I was born in 2005, but since my brother was into Bionicle, I grew up watching these movies. I first watched them when I think I was 3. No way. That's incredible. Your first ever memories of watching films. Arathan Alfaro says, howdy, how's it going? How's it going, man? Raidmaster Production says, I've seen a few live-action films, including Lord of the Rings, and some cheap films like Riki-O and Trauma films. Rodoka Hot Meter 1 to 10. I don't know, 8.5, 9, 10 if you're a simp for a Simperock. Kyler Nuva, when Frodo gets stabbed by the troll. Okay, yeah, Kyler Nuva, when Frodo gets stabbed by the troll, the slow motion is so choppy. Yeah, and they use that in Mask of Light a handful of times. SJ, that would be more entertaining way of deciding politics than presidential debates for sure. Kyler Nuva says, Rodaka? Alright, cool. Well, 17 concurrent viewers. We just talked about Mask of Light. Now, let's move on to Legends of Metru Nui. This is the second film that was released in 2004, and I was so excited when I found out they were doing a second one. Not super excited that they were going to make it about going back in time, because for me, I was like, that's cool. I hope they can keep it up. But I remember at the time being a little bit like, I kind of wish they'd continue the story going forward. But they did what they had to do, because at the time they were used to making films for every Bionicle storyline that was going on. And so Legends of Metru Nui comes out, and I remember I loved Vakama, I loved his character, I loved his arc that he goes through at the time. It was interesting that now, for the first time, we were actually having a story about the Toa and their journey. And having it set in the past was also really cool. And it just going over, I remember at the time, like, I was like, where's the Morbazak? Because that was such a huge storyline for the first half of 2004. But they barely touch it in like one shot in Legends of Metru Nui. They don't really go over the Matoran. They don't really go over finding the Great Discs for too long. But regardless, I think the music gets even better. The story of the Toa coming together, I think Makuta being an even deeper, more like present threat is also really interesting. The whole story with Turaga Lakan, Lakan is like a lot of people's just favorite character. That whole storyline is heart-wrenching. I mean, he literally, spoiler alert, he literally dies at the end, sacrifices himself. And that idea of the way of the Bionicle, like Matoran into Toa, Toa into Turaga, Turaga into Legend, covers the scope and I think some of the stories of Bionicle even better than Mask of Light did. Again, it is definitely a better film than Mask of Light. For me, it's all personally nostalgia. Mask of Light would be the film I'd take to my grave, But I will say, man, Legends of Metru Nui, still to this day, I think most Bionicle fan base will say is their favorite and the best film. And you can tell that the animation is definitely better. They actually shoot at each other, and there's definitely more action and combat. And for all in all, just in general, they even explore mass powers to a certain degree. Not a lot still, and that's something my roommate, when I showed him, still had a criticism of. But they do a little bit find their masked powers, maybe not their elemental powers, but their masked powers in the film. So it does definitely give you, I think, a better scope of what Bionicle tries to tell as a story with just having the Toa and the elements. And what I love the most out of the entire film is just the way they set the landscape of the island. In the first 5 minutes, you go from every village, and they have a wide of the village. Still, they didn't ever show wides of the island themselves. It's one thing I'm so confused, because for everything else in Bionicle, you always got to see the full island, the map. But they do go from city to city as Turaga Vakama is narrating each area and what they do and how they contribute to the society. So in general, that is my favorite. And it's why that they did Web of Shadows and stayed in 2005 in Metru Nui, because they had all of these assets built from the city of Metru Nui. They were like, we can't just not use this for another year. So that's my complete thoughts on Legends of Metru Nui. Again, incredible music. A really dark ending, because it's literally the Great Cataclysm. Mata Nui is put to sleep. The city is in ruins. Matoran are put into essentially comas for a handful of days.
Spoilers, dude, come on.
But yeah, very somber ending, and I really like it. Captain Gio, your thoughts and opinions and your first time and everything for Legends of Metru Nui.
For Legends of Metru Nui, this is my favorite of the three. So I'm going to be a little bit more biased in that regard.
It's cool.
So for character design, whereas the first movie was taking inspiration for its models from the toys, for Legends of Metru Nui, it was the other way around. It was the animation company who made the models, and then Lego made toys out of that. So that's how the
wow.
The Metru Nui, like the Toa Metru models, look so much like the toys. It's because Lego did the inspiration, or the animation company did the inspiration instead of the other way around, like
That's
it was
cool.
with
I didn't know that.
Mask of Light. So I liked basically everything about this movie. I enjoyed the fact that it was more of a mystery instead of just a bombastic Lord of the Rings style quest, which that's what basically Mask of Light was.
Right, totally.
I mean, it's like Mask of Light is all you have the two little people, they find this golden artifact, and they need to go somewhere in order to use it. That's literally Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah, that's what I said. It basically was. It's funny.
Whereas Legends of Metru Nui, you have Toa Likan, which is the last Toa in Metru Nui, as of the beginning of the movie. And then most of the movie is spent trying to find out where he went.
Yeah.
And a lot of I kind of like if you were paying attention to the story of Legends of Metru Nui, you'll realize that the Metru Nui the Toa Metru's elemental powers are incredibly weak, if not non-existent.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So, since Toa Likan was the one that gave all 6 Matoran elemental powers, I'm pretty sure that only having one Toa give 6 Matoran elemental powers meant that it had to be that Likan's elemental power, which was probably incredibly great for a Toa of Fire, it was distributed amongst the 6 Matoran.
That's interesting.
And therefore, it makes their elemental powers weaker. So they had to figure out how to use their mask powers.
That's
instead.
True. That's interesting. I wonder if, like, you asked Greg if he would say that's a thing. Because now
I'm not saying that's how it was. I'm just saying in my mind that makes sense.
No, and I mean, even from what I remember in the comics and the books, they didn't often use their elemental powers as much. I mean, they were only Toa for what, a year, if that. So,
a month, maybe.
Yeah, so that is actually quite an interesting thing to bring up. I mean, even the Toa Inika and Toa Mari, I don't believe were as big of users of their elemental powers so much as like the light.
They were using them much more often because they had the experiences of both the Toa Nuva and the Toa Metru, the Turaga.
Yeah.
So they were using that and the Toa Metru's incompatibility as like a telltale, like an old wives' tale. Like, hey, this is what you don't do in a Toa team, and this is what you do do in a Toa team. And then the 6 Matoran in the Toa Inika / Toa Mari, they took that to heart, and they became one of the most efficient Toa teams in the main story.
Right. All right, Darth Revan, your thoughts on Legends of Metru Nui? I know it was the first one you saw, so it was kind of your introduction to the cinematic universe.
Well, let's see. So I think it was like it was a Friday around February 2009. I was in school at the time, so I asked one of my parents to, DVR it. So, and then like when I got home, I wanted to watch it, and I thought like, oh, cool, I never knew they existed Bionicle films. So I watched it, just the music and all that, and the score by Nathan first, and then you hear Makama saying, "Gathered friends, we're listening again to Legend of Bionicle." Blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, cool, and then it just cut to like, okay, some guy, just breaking into some temple, Indiana Jones style, and then he's ambushed by 2 Dark Hunters, which are Kraken and Nadiki, and I was like, oh, cool, I like their designs, I think their voices too suit them, like, Nadiki's like some sort of 4-legged, like, humanoid spider thing, and then Kraken's like some sort of, like, not so bright, Dark Hunter brute, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, and then I just later realized, like, oh, so this Toa, his name's Likan, and he seems to be, collecting stones to gather around for a certain, Matoran. And it turns out that those Matoran were the Toa Metru, because I guess, like in the Bionicle universe, you're a Matoran, then you turn to a Toa, and then turn to a Turaga, but you're chosen to be a Toa. Some, not all Matoran become Toa. And I was like, all right, cool. So, and I thought, like, I think that I like the voice actors too. They're pretty cool and all. And I thought it was at first I thought, it was a little goofy in a sense, because I know, like, Matt Tao was just pretty much like the comic relief of the team.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, all right, it's cool, and then there's this, old guy apparently in the Bionicle named Duma, and I was like, oh, he seems shady. I don't know if I'm gonna like him at all. And I was like, I knew it. It turns out to be Makuta Pterodax in disguise in the end. And I was like, all right. And then he apparently absorbed his spy bird, which is the Nevok, which apparently kind of looks nothing like the set, kinda, just different color. And then when I just find it a little funny too, like how when that scene when they were in Home Metro, I think it was, where Matt Tao discovered his mask power. He was tricking Kruk and Nadik. I thought that was a cool scene. And what I was kind of like not too crazy about was the fact that, seeing Makuta in Mask of Light and then Legends of Metru Nui, they just gave him wings. Like, I guess maybe for either budget purposes or they wanted to make it less scary for kids, because the Ultimate Duma set is a little scary in a sense for kids.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's all the memories I have. Like, to this day, like, I'll still watch Legend of Metru Nui because, they're archived on, like, a YouTube channel. And there were a couple nights, like, when I used to talk with some friends, like, in a sleep call on Discord. I would just, like, let's say, I'm still awake and this person's probably sleeping on the call, so I'll just watch a movie. And then there would be Legends of Metru Nui. And that's my story.
That's great, and I'm sure there are other people out there who that was their first film. Just to say it for Yoshi Dude, yes, Scott McNeil played Toa Tahu. He was great. We all know he was great. I think the voice actor
what has been said has already been said. We don't need to talk about it.
I will say, the voice actor for Vakama, Turaga Vakama, is great. He's like an actual like Thespian and like a really good actor. You can find him. He has like a YouTube and everything. He's from like the UK, and does a bunch of voice acting. So, and I think like the voice actor for Jaller, if I'm not mistaken, went on to do a bunch of animation voices for like Last Airbender and a bunch of other shows. I forget what characters, but he did a bunch. He did like those Hot Wheel films. I don't know if you guys ever watched the Hot Wheel cartoon movies, the 3D movies, but like he did a handful of voices in those as well. So he got around in like the voice acting sphere. But all right, yeah, it sounds like we're in agreement. Like Legends of Metru Nui, for the most part, most people agree is like the best film. And when it comes to like filmmaking as a whole, I studied it in college. It definitely succeeds the most in its world building. And I think just in introducing to you what Bionicle is, the story of Bionicle, how you go from Matoran to Toa to Turaga into Legend. And it has a lot of emotion in it too. So yeah, a great film, is often the one most rewatchable too amongst Bionicle fans. But let's talk about
it's also like, just as a tail end of Legends of Metru Nui, Legends of Metru Nui, I would say, is probably the most watchable from an outsider's point of view. So
True.
Like it's self-contained. It's a self-contained story. You get the prologue, you get the epilogue. It's a single story type of thing, and even though it is the best of the three, it is not without its problems.
Totally. I agree. Yep. It's definitely not without its problems.
In the story, I think like how in the film, like, they first enter the Colosseum where they prove themselves to be really Toa when they claim to be, I think the one thing that they were cut, like, in terms of like the story and all, like before they enter the Colosseum, is like they fought against like some sort of vine creature known as the Morbizak. And
each Bionicle movie was only like an hour long.
Oh yeah,
so
even they had a lot of things.
Even for a kids film, they could have shoveled in the like Nuri and Akmu and the Zola into the plot line and added the Morbizak. Maybe just as like a side villain.
Totally. All right, so for time's sake, we're gonna move on to Bionicle 3: Web of Shadows. Now, I remember when watching the DVD for Legends of Metru Nui, they had a bunch of bonus features, much more than they did for Mask of Light. And it was like introductions of the people that are making it. I even think that was the first time I got to see Christian Faber. And at the end, they were like, we're going to show you how Bionicle is built, how the Lego company works. It was really cool and definitely an inspiration for a couple friends and I to maybe even become like Lego engineers one day. So SJ says goodbye. Hope to meet you guys again. Can't emphasize how awesome it was to talk with one of my childhood icons, especially as equals. SJ, thanks for being here. Go ahead and get some sleep and come back tomorrow to watch the rest of this stream from beginning to end. Also, for anyone that's just tuning in, you can watch from the beginning once we're over here in about 15 minutes or so. But, yeah. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So, on the DVD extras for Legends of Metru Nui, they said, watch till the end and you have a preview of next year's Bionicle. And I remember they had, like, little, like, very much demos. Oh, they almost looked like mocks, like prototypes of the Vizorock. Their like, legs, their spider-like legs had wheels on the end. It was such a strange thing to see.
It looked like hooves or paws.
Hooves or paws. If you go on my YouTube channel, I uploaded these segments from the DVDs actually to YouTube, and you can watch them. But I remember just being very excited about what was going to happen forward. I didn't exactly know that what they were going to do was, because all the assets for the city of Metru Nui were so well crafted and designed and saved on, I'm sure, a bunch of hard drives and computers, and they said, let's tack on another year, 2005. They returned to Metru Nui. And I remember this confusing my friends. I remember them being like, oh, I thought they turned into Turaga. They're Toa again, all this stuff. For me, I'm a hardcore Bionicle fan. I read the comics, the books. I know what's going on. But for a lot of people, that's really the only downside I will say this movie has, is that while it, and I'm about to get into it, I think the film's actually still pretty good. It's not so much an obvious next step for what a young audience would expect a film series to be going in the direction toward. It essentially just gets you the same Toa team, and you're on the same island. But I will say, it's very creepy. Them being in those cocoons and turning into the Hordika is kind of a scary thing for a kid to see. I remember one of my friends said he had to stop watching the movie. He was like probably 8 or 9. Stopped watching the movie because it was such a scary scene. All of them falling to their potential like deaths. You know, the Rahaga saved them, obviously, but if you didn't watch up to that point, you're like, what's going to happen? So very dark, disturbing kind of film. I mean, literally, as Wenua says, the archives exploded and all these beasts are out. So really a cool concept. Not the direction I think that really made sense for it at the time, besides of the fact that, like I said, they had all these assets left over of the giant island, you know, all these cities, so they wanted to reuse them. So I think that kind of makes sense. And yeah, so I will say, like, you know, it's the third movie. I was very sad to find out that they weren't making a fourth, because I was so excited to see where things were going. But for the most part, it really does better than Mask of Light, and pretty much just as good as I would say as Legend Reborn. Focuses on character development and these Toa teams and them figuring out what they're going to do in these unforeseen circumstances where they're literally turned into beasts and they have to tame themselves. And I think having Vakama, while a lot of people argue, and I know you, Gio, especially think it would have made sense more for Matau to kind of have his dark turn, and because it seems more like he definitely had a lot more resentment for Vakama and the Toa team. For me, I would explain it as Vakama is still the main character of this story, and I think that was just a lot of creative capers input, but also the story team at the time just deciding that we're going to do Vakama because let's test the limits of this character more. I mean, what else was Vakama really going to be doing with the team if it had been Matau's subplot? Again, it would have still been a great film, and I think maybe made a little more sense, especially when Gio explains it, and a lot of other fans explain it. But for me, it seems like a no-brainer from just a producerial standpoint. Like, the team leader is the main character, make that character go through his dilemmas of essentially being turned to the dark side. I mean, this does have moments in the movie that are very similar to, like, and reflective to, like, Revenge of the Sith. I mean, in a way, literally, Rudaka is, like, you know...
Empress Palpatine.
Yeah, Sidious, you know. I guess what's fucking... Sidirock is basically... Count Dooku or something. I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to think about it.
Sorry for Zach that swore.
Freaking! This is not a kid show. How many people here are under 18? 2, 3? But yeah, that was the first time I've ever sworn on this show. What the heck? Anyways, yeah, like I was saying, I think very Revenge of the Sith vibes. I mean, he basically almost turns to the dark side. And then for me, I love Kitangu. There are some moments with the Rahaga in the score, in Nathan First's score, that are even better than in Legends of Metru Nui. just them flying and like there's this really amazing melodic tune that's just beautiful out of the third film, out of Web of Shadows. And so Nathan First is just, he's firing on all cylinders when it comes to the music in this film is just incredible. So I love this film still. I think like the more I rewatch it, you know, when I was a kid I was disappointed that we're with the Toa Metru again. We don't get to see the Toa Nuva. What's actually happening in the next story? And oh no, what if we don't get a fourth? But for me, it's really the ending. It's Matau and Vakama talking on that ledge. And, you know, he says, I know you're deep down there. Like, we wouldn't be anything without you. I'm sorry, all this stuff. Lets himself go and says, it's up to you what happens next. And Vakama decides, I'm going to save Matau. I'm going to turn on Rudaka, all this stuff. Just incredible. Their journey to Kitangu is really cool. I think Kitangu is just a really fascinating character as well. People love that kind of a character that talks very sparingly and like doesn't. It's hard to understand what he's saying, but for the most part, it's like this kind of essentially a being that they need in order to succeed their mission. So yeah, it's overall, like I'm saying, I really do love the film still. I think it's all three of these movies have their pros and cons. I think the battles in Web of Shadows are probably my favorite. I mean, for the first time, you're seeing all 6 Toa up against a legion of Vizirok, a horde of Vizirok.
5.
And in the whole sequence of them in the Colosseum battling it out is, I think, the most well-done, spectacular giant sort of action sequence out of, besides I think the Colosseum scene in Legend of Metru Nui, out of all the films, really. I mean, it puts everything in Mask of Light to shame on Kini Nui, just like the Toa messing around, fooling around. Like, it really is pretty epic, but I don't know. I'm sure there are other things to talk about. I saw someone in the chat was like, the only Lego film where suicide is allowed because of the scene where the Vizirok tosses itself over the ledge.
If you read the books, if you read the book adaptation for Web of Shadows, those Vizirok actually survive.
Okay, so they address it in the book, but I'm sure they fall from that height. They still catch themselves, but that is funny. And there's like the Vizirok that's like using its like teeth to like clean the floor. I think it has like a little like. There's so many fun little gimmicks.
It has
in the
a
movie.
polisher.
Yeah, it's polishing the floor, like waxing the floor. Anyways, yeah, just again, a really good film. I think it really back to back Legends of Metru Nui and Web of Shadows are a fun watch. Does it feel like a cohesive trilogy by the end of this film? They try because you know they tack on Jaller and Takua talking to Turaga, with Holly talking to Turaga Vakama, but for the most part, I will, you know, I'll be pressed hard not to say that I was disappointed in the fact that it was the end. I mean, we didn't get any Bionicle film till Legends Were Reborn. We weren't able to get to see Voya Nui. We weren't able to get to see Metru Nui or the Toa Nuva back. But when, you know, you look at the film on its own, it's still pretty good. And some people, it's their favorite. I think a couple people in the live chat today have said that it's their personal favorite.
I think it's mine too.
Yeah, you're right. Color Nuva. Takanuva. It's Takanuva at that point. True. But yeah, I guess those are all my points of this film. I still haven't shown my roommate. I've shown him the first 2. He liked the second one more. I'm excited to see what he thinks of this because as far as the storyline goes, this one is even more, I will say, kind of clear and concise. They have to become Toa again, and Vakama is, you know, getting tempted by essentially like the dark side, which is probably what happened to a handful of Toa that became like dark hunters and all that you find out about. So yeah, it's a fascinating film still. I think it's a great one. The animation is even better than Mask of Light. The score is incredible. Yeah, those are my thoughts. Gio, let's hand it over to you.
All right. So for Bionicle 3, this is probably like for like the skill of the people behind it, this is like the best animated, best composed, probably even best voice acted by a big margin.
Cool.
But
yeah.
This is also the most unnecessary movie out of the 3. Because if 2005, as we know it, didn't happen, it would have gone straight to Voya Nui. And I personally would have loved to hear Zach Tan just growling at you. I wanted to see Zach Tan and basically all the Paraka just go up against the Toa Nuva and then see the 6 Matoran, Matoro, Jala, Holly, Kongu, the rest
Right.
All of them, like just seeing a Matoran become a Toa in that way, not from another Toa, but from the Red Star itself. Which
right.
It makes oh, and Karzani too. Like,
Yeah,
oh
how
my
cool
god,
would that have been?
just seeing the realm of Karzani, and it's basically like, what? It's basically like a concentration camp,
Oh
basically.
my god, totally. Yeah, oh yeah. It's nutty.
Where people are experimented on until they become hollow shells of their former selves, just completely petrified and submissive and basically mute. Like they can't really work very well, so Karzani gives them like weapons to compensate for his own incompetence.
Yeah. But okay, but Legends or Web of Shadows though. I hear you.
I know, I digress.
No worries.
But like I've already said that that Vakama turning, like within context of the movie, yeah, it makes sense. Vakama, he does get a lot of crap dealt to him by his teammates.
Right.
But at the same time, as I said before, Matau being the one to be tempted by Rudaka and then switching sides, it would have also made sense because he was he was the one that felt the worst off to me.
Yeah.
Considering like no, I can't be ugly forever. Ooh, Rudaka. If I'm going to be ugly forever, I might as well rule these things.
Hordika Venom 2 running through him. Carniva says, don't forget the Hordika Venom running through them. Chuglet says, I like the fact that Web of Shadows leaves you wanting more at the end, but on the other hand, I would have loved to see a smoother transition from Metru Nui to Metronui. I agree. Hazelbeam says, as much as I love Legends of Metru Nui, my partner and I watched it recently and has a lot of exposition dumps throughout it all. I never realized how bad it was until she pointed them out. True, but she probably also didn't grow up with the film, which is also a big part of the reason we like these movies, let's be honest. But also,
don't forget Time Trap.
They're kid films, and you need exposition almost, because for a film for kids, a film that has so much lore in that universe of Bionicle, you do kind of need to explain everything outright to these kids who probably a lot of them didn't even know much about Bionicle. But I hear you there, especially I think showing anyone who's like older now that didn't grow up with them would be able to point out a lot of problems for sure. I definitely, have my bias towards these films. Darth Revan, your thoughts, Web of Shadows, the second film you saw.
Wow, this is going to be a bit of a long one, but I'm going to try to, see if it work quick as possible. Okay. So, it was, I was home, it's winter break after Valentine's Day, and I watched the Web of Shadows, and I thought, okay, all right, second Bionicle film I'm watching is the third one. Okay, well, all right, seems very dark. All right, not bad. And then I'm like, whoa, what the hell happened to Metru Nui? And then, this Vizirac coming, I'm just like, what the hell are those things, And then it's just like you see them all trapped in like a web, and then you see like Rudaka and Sidorak, and I thought, wow, I thought these sets were pretty cool. I myself actually I've had them myself, but I had them bought on eBay. Like my parents bought them on eBay for me. To this day, I feel like, darn, I felt like I could have kept them, but I sold them to a friend of mine, unfortunately. But yeah, anyways, and I thought like this seems like a cool movie. You get to see like these Rahaga, which are Nor, Karuni, Gaki, all the rest. And I thought like, so these are what they look like, and those are like the same, faces for the Rakshi in terms of the sets, and I'm like, now that's more like it. I wasn't too crazy with the Rakshi faces in the Mask of Light, but I thought the Rahaga faces were much better.
Yeah, that's true. They did look even more set accurate in this film.
And if anything, like, I just like, wow, Mattel was just being an ungrateful jack. and then I thought, it's pretty understandable for Vakama to be all like, quick-tempered, because, they were just kind of giving him crap, like, Vakama, you did, F up, all that. So he's like, all right, well, screw you guys, I'm going to do this alone, I don't need this crap anymore. And then just typical, like, being arrogant, like if he was Anakin in Revenge of the Sith and all that, slowly turning to the dark side. And then when he was ambushed by Vizrak, I'm just like, oh, wow. I like the set of Rudaka, but I hate how she is personality-wise in the story. Like
She's
Empress
so sexy.
Palpatine.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, I know, like the set, but the personality-wise, it's like a female Sidious. And
Not
how
to mention, she has silver Rakshi head booba.
yeah, exactly. But that's not what I was like focused on. I was just like, oh, okay, so Bakama's evil, so his eyes turn green, that makes you evil then. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And then I remember, like, I did admittedly got a bit of the jump scare with that, when Bakama just, like, lounged at Norik. And then when the Great Temple was all in smoke, and then he captured the other Rahaga, I thought, like, it was similar to, like, that smoke where Yoda and Obi-Wan were going back to Jedi Temple where they fought against the rest of the clones and all that. So it was, like, very similar to Revenge of the Sith, that movie, because, you think about it, 2005, the third film in the trilogy. Coincidence or inspirations, I don't know. But yeah, like the way, like how it was handled, the way when Mattel just went to try to confront Bakama, see him bring him back to the light and all that. Just very like Revenge of the Sith, but there was like no lava planet like Mustafar where they fought in lava, where he wasn't like, there were no lightsabers on it. They were just like fighting and all that. And then it's just like, Bakama, I'm sorry for what I did to you. If you really are who you are, fine. I'm just gonna fall down, see what you're gonna do. And then when his eyes turn, the orange again, I was like, oh, so that's how if you're good or evil, just different eye colors. That's cool, I guess.
And then a few years later, they were just releasing green eyes for the heroes and red eyes.
Yeah, it makes it easy. It makes it easy for the kids.
Yeah, but then I thought, like, it wasn't really like a Anakin Obi-Wan fight where he wasn't all like, it's over, I have the high ground, and then just slice off the limbs where he shouts,
I have the high ground, but Anakin.
Yeah, and there was no burning. Vakama didn't have a secret lover where she was pregnant with twins and all that. No dying childbirth thoughts, all that. And I was like, okay, that's the thing's different between the film. There was no very dark tones and all that. But there were some very similar traits towards Revenge of the Sith, of course, I thought. And, I thought this was a really good film because I liked the fact that how, I liked the set in terms of the Titans. And I was really looking forward to want to get Kitangu.
Yeah.
And then when they all defeated Rudaka, I thought, like, did they kill her off because the eyes just went completely pitch black red, and then Makuda's hand just, like, took her somewhere. And I thought, did she die? But then I realized in the story, like, Makuda just took her someplace because she ended up coming back in the story later on.
Makuda comes back at the end, you're like, oh my god, I gotta see what happens next, and then nothing.
Yeah, I thought she just died. When after Vakama just shot that last shot, but then it's just like later.
She didn't. Yeah.
It was just like she wanted to free Pterodax.
She had to survive because Federation of Fear was the thing.
Yeah, the Suicide Squad of Bionicle.
That's a good way to put it.
And most of them actually did die, though.
Par.
That's so
Spiria.
true.
And Spiria, yeah. And Takedox just fled.
Yeah, so for the last 10 minutes, let's see. I think... Oh, I haven't even checked the voice text on the Discord. Yoshi Dude and Supposed Senju are here. I had no idea. Oh, wow, he found the US... Oh, my God. Oh, I'm going to have to show this. This is the commercial for October 2003 Cartoon Network Toonami sweepstakes. You guys, I have to show this. Let's do that. And then maybe we'll toss Yoshi Dude or Sposenju in for a second to talk about the films himself before I go. I was about to finish this stream, but I have to show you guys this. This is awesome. Okay, cool. Let me find a way I can capture this window real quick. So, damn, that's awesome you found it. Only 241 views. This is the commercial I was talking about when we were going over Mask of Light and it playing on Cartoon Network, and when there was a sweepstakes for where is it? For winning the toys. So let's see. Ooh, better quality. Here we go. All right. Okay, awesome. This should totally work. Wow. All right, cool. I hope there's no like copyright music in here. I've probably not. We're gonna be just fine. All right, let's do it. Come on. All right. Let me pull it up. Come on. All right.
I wonder if they would have made a Bionicle 3.5 film, which the 3.5 being the time trap storyline.
Right. Okay, cool, guys. Here it is. Let me transition. If you're tuning in now, I'm going to show it. 13 concurrent viewers. Check this out. This is the Better Quality USA TV Lego Bionicle October 2003 Cartoon Network Toonami Sweepstakes commercial.
Bionicle legend is back. The evil Makuta has unleashed the Rakshi onto Metru Nui. Are they hunting the precious Mask of Light? Can the mighty Toanuba stop them? Toonami's giving you the chance to be a part of the Bionicle legend. We're giving away so much Bionicle stuff, your head's gonna spin. One grand prize winner gets the jackpot. The only solid platinum Kanohi Mask of Light in existence. A $7,000 value. But that's not all. The grand prize winner also scores a 36-inch color TV, a DVD player, and a giant pile of other Bionicle goodies. Look at that. 500 second prize winners score one of 6 new Rakshi Bionicle action figures. Want to get in on this? Watch Toonami all this week from 5 to 7 for the toll-free number. And see if you've got what it takes to live the legend. Bionicle from Lego.
Wow. That's so much more than I remember. I mean, look at that. You have Rakshi, you have Borak, you have the Toa, you have all the Titans, you have like the games, a watch, a clock. Oh my god.
You got the drip.
A TV. Wow, this is so much more than I thought.
With the shoes, you gotta get that drip.
Yoshi, dude, I had no idea. Thank you so much for sending this. Oh my god. That is wild. Oh my gosh. Well, now you guys know. If you're tuning in now, you know exactly what I'm talking about when they had this commercial to win all this stuff. Crazy. Oh my god.
You gotta get that Bonkle drip, dude.
Dude,
the only way you can get Bonkle drip now is through Etsy, probably.
Etsy and like Redbubble. But oh my god. Thank you so much for showing us that, Yoshi, dude. That is epic. Incredible. Yeah, so there's like 500 people that can win certain prizes like the Rakshi and a platinum, I guess, Takanuva like Mask of Light. So I'm assuming that exists somewhere. Some kid probably, who knows. It'd be unfortunate if that wasn't worth $7,000, the guy said. Oh my god.
Platinum Evoke.
Somebody in chat asked if Toonami was only an American thing.
I don't know. Maybe it was.
It
Bionicle
says that it was
shoes.
American, but I'm pretty sure it aired in other places.
Wow,
that
that's
wasn't
awesome.
just from the U.S. It was mainly the U.S., but I don't think it was only the U.S.
Wow, that was epic. Oh my god. Wow. That was a serious
Disney
flashback.
one is on here too.
That was a serious flashback. Holy. I've like, it's like I literally haven't seen that commercial in, we're talking, almost 20 years. That's wild. Holy crap.
CRT TV with Bionicle plastered on the screen.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for showing me that, Yoshi, dude. That's a great way to bring this together. I unfortunately have to go, guys. I have to eat dinner and figure my life out. But everyone that's watching, all 17 concurrent viewers. And I know Yoshi didn't supposed to send you. We didn't get to talk. We'll do another one of these where we'll talk about the Bionicle films because there's so many voices that need to be heard. If you want to have your voice heard, go ahead and click the link in the description. I'm pretty sure it's updated. If not, let me know. Put a comment here because otherwise I will update it. Join our Discord to join the chats. And also, if you ever want to come onto this show and lend your voice, if you have a webcam, that's even better, to these live shows, go ahead and do so. Follow me on Instagram at @TheZachCap. It's right up here. Where is it? Right here. And Captain Geo, I believe, also has an Instagram as well. And he's always posting really cool stuff, his mocks and everything. On his story, he's posting like some of the mocks that he loves that he finds online as well. You'd be surprised that there is quite a big Instagram Bionicle community out there. People love to post what they create. So check that out as well.
Community than you'd think.
Now, also, if you're tuning in now, I will be going live tomorrow with All Out Brick and Thrawn doing the Lego Masters finale episode recap. We have like 2 others as well, so it'll be back-to-back, 3 45-minute to an hour-long recap episodes. So that's 3 hours of live LegomationStudio. Zach Kaplan here tomorrow. So tune in for that. I think we're going to be starting at around 5-ish or so. So we'll be going from like 5 to 8, just going over the finale of Lego Masters. And then obviously, I'm hoping down the line to be doing with our Discord as well a live watch along of all 3 of these films where we'll be able to discuss them, kind of go over the moments, and then have kind of a rebuttal at the end as well. But until then, thank you, Captain Geo. Thank you, Darth Revan, for coming on.
You're welcome.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in and watching. Yeah, this was an awesome one. And as Tarago Vakama would say, this is the way.
It's the way of the Bionicle.
Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next Thursday on BioTalk Live.